Okay, we'll get started. We do our press conferences a little bit differently than the usual. We frame it as a TV show called Climate Matters TV. And the records of our shows are on this website, if you'd like to check them afterwards. And we're coming to you from COP22 in Marrakesh. This is my email address, and I'll give it again at the end of the show so that people can be in touch afterwards with questions and comments. And today's show, I'm going to pose to you that consumerism is a pseudo-religion, and it transcends religious boundaries. It is arguably the pseudo-religion of modern civilization. Atheists can be part of this religion too. Now, consumerism offers us this beautiful advertising: buy, consume, go. You're not good enough the way you are. You have to buy something or do something to be better, to feel better about yourself. But in fact, what it gives us is something more like this. On the left, in a moment, you'll see the global concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from 1850 onward. And on the right, the global temperature change over the same period, roughly. And you can watch how those two things track one another. It's shocking what we're doing to the planet. That's why we're here. We're trying to wake humanity up to what it is doing to itself, destroying its own ecosystem on which we depend. Now, I'd like to pose the first question to our panel. How can religion counteract the damage being done by consumerism? Rabbi Nerel?
The environmental crisis is not a crisis of the bees and the birds or the trees and the toads. It's a crisis of how we live as spiritual beings in a physical reality. Therefore, in order to address this crisis, we're going to need to address the spiritual roots. What are some of those spiritual roots? This includes the desire for instant self-gratification, consumerism. That is, religious teachings relate to that because they teach delayed gratification, seeking the pleasure satisfaction in the spiritual. Another root of this crisis is short-term thinking, narrow thinking. Religious teachings relate to that by encouraging long-term thinking. These are a couple of the roots, and I think that in order to get religions on board, religions themselves are going to have to undergo a transformation. Clergy are going to need to speak about these issues frequently. They're going to need to be trained to be messengers of an ecological conversion for their faith adherents.
Archbishop Seraphim.
You refer to all the religions today, or most of them. In fact, 84% of the whole population claim that they are religious people. So, first of all, we have to consider ourselves as a part of the problem, as a part of the people who contribute for this complicated problem. And today, to give the pressure to somebody, if there is life in another planet, he's going to challenge us to tell us, to ask us, why you are killing your planet? Why you are killing your house? In fact, this is what we are doing today. Unfortunately, we give priority to some financial literates, and we suffer of the lack of respect of life. That's why it's very complicated. Instead, to finish poverty, the harms is going bigger and bigger between rich and poor. And for me, it's a crime when we increase the amounts of money on military developments, and then at the same time, we spend a lot of money how to rebuild what we destroy. In the future, if there are people in this planet, they are not going to feel proud of us. The sufferings of the two world wars lead the international community to establish the World Council of Churches and the United Nations. Many people are disappointed. So, what is the role of the religion? Can religion be a part of the solution? the people who claim that belong in one faith community? How? And this is our challenge here, in order to show a sort of repentance. Repentance in the Bible means metanoia, to change your mind. And then we come to forgiveness. Forgiveness means also psychoresis, means to give space to the other, to live together, sharing things, and to feel that you belong to the body of the family of the humanity. So if we realize this, we are going to be in the position to change things. And we have to stop blaming the politicians about this problem, because who are electing the politicians? If we claim that we are 84% of the whole population of the world, religious people, we are the ones who elect them. So what do we need? But if there is not unity and commitment in the religious leaders, in the people who are involved in the religion, how can we influence the people we meet if we fail to solve our eternal problems? And in the name of religion, we commit crimes. How can we contribute to change things?
If I may, before we go to Dr. Fakhruddin, you say we elected them, and it's true, we elected them, but our powers to elect are only nominal in many cases. There's an election going on right now in my country, which many people think of as a circus, the way it's played out. And we're only given limited choices on who we can elect. And so my question for ourselves is, why are we given such limited choices? You know, I had a choice to make when I presented consumerism as the pseudo-religion. I chose to do that rather than call it the financial system as our pseudo-religion, because we all march to the tune of money. We're all controlled by money, from the biggest to the smallest of us. And the banks and the financial sector sets the agenda and arguably determines who runs for the presidents and prime ministers. So I think we need to go to the banking system. Dr. Fakhruddin.
Actually, there have been a nice word on the in comparative language of consumerism is the religion of the market, which is on the academia says that we are just like a worshipping of materialistic things as a solutions of everything. And in spirituality, actually in Islam, like we said in some of the teaching, is the matter how we can keep this in balance. Balance in life, balance in consume everything, make this efficiency, and because the whole planet is shared together, and the whole planet is provided for human being, not only for human being, but also for other creations, for the sustainability of living. So in some way we have been moving to the greedy, using the resources more than the capacity of it is the planets being provided for us. So that's why the role of religion is very important here, because in some religion, as we understand that the teachings of the long-term sustainability and long-term of how we keep the resources in balance. And the balance thing is very, very important if we want to make a step forward for the conservation of the natural resources as well for the future of human planet.
Thank you. Now, I see that our other guest from Islam, Nana Firman, is with us now. Do we have another chair? Nana, can you come up and join us, please? I think the participation of a woman is especially important for our next conversation on population, a rather thorny issue, shall we say. Now, I want very briefly to show you the human population throughout history. It took us about 160,000 years to reach 250 million of us. And that number doubled in about 1,500 years. And then it doubled again in only about 300 years. and it more than doubled in the next 150, and in the next 60 years it almost tripled in size. We're expected to reach 2 to 3 billion more humans by mid-century, and few talk about what will happen then publicly. But if you think about it, it may not be a very pretty picture, with climate change and other ecological degradation coming very rapidly at us. Can we grow enough food to feed this population? Now, this is said to be the carrying capacity of Earth in terms of its human occupants. We are taking up the space of all of the other animal species in the biosphere. So the question I would like to ask our panel to deal with, and I'll start with Nana Firmin. Population. How do we avoid catastrophic climate change without addressing our burgeoning population? And in particular, how about contraception, family planning, and the scriptural directives to procreate? Nana, can you tackle that for us first?
Thank you. This is like my personal perspective. Perhaps not really I cannot say it like from the Islamic perspective, but our biggest problem right now is greed. So actually for the 7 billion plus that we have right now, we have enough resources. However, like some take resources more than others. Like if we see about the developing countries, underdeveloped countries, then you see like the just look at the ecological footprints from like developed countries. If like for example, if everybody lives like American lives, then you will need like more than 5 Earths. That's also like when you talk about family plan and so on, contraception, that's actually included on that, on the discussion of how can we see that we share the resources from this Earth together.
Thank you. I will say the issue of equity, yes, we could support the 7 billion we have now and perhaps as many as 10 billion more easily if the wealthiest would be willing to share, but that's a big if, as my father used to say. The structure currently is that the wealthiest want to hold on and increase their wealth and are not willing to share. So I will have a program later this week on population in particular, and we'll deal with some of these issues again, because interestingly enough, one less child in the developing world, or one more child, shall we say, in the developing world, has a far smaller footprint than one more child in the developed world. So the population question is one where we are pointing to ourselves. It's not over there. It's all of us. Can I get an answer to that question from you, Rabbi?
In Genesis 1:28, the Bible teaches, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and conquer it and dominate the animals, the birds, the fish." Within the Judeo-Christian tradition, that verse is really the center of the conversation about population.
I will debate that translation, by the way,
Okay.
but go ahead.
In Hebrew, pru urvu umil'u et ha'aretz v'kivshuha urdu bigdat hayam. So be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The question is, at what point have we filled the earth? Have we filled the earth at 7.4 billion people, which is where we're at right now? Will we fill the earth in 30 years at 9 billion people? Will we fill the earth at 12 billion? What is the vision of the Creator for human life on this planet? In my humble opinion, we have fulfilled the command to fill the earth. In fact, this UN climate change conference is dealing with the question of and conquer it. We have done too good a job of conquering the earth, such that we are now faced with our potential own destruction that we're bringing upon ourselves. According to Jewish law, a Jew fulfills the commandment of be fruitful and multiply upon having 2 children, a boy and a girl. That is the Jewish legal definition of fulfilling that commandment. And Joseph, who is considered one of the greatest Jews who lived, he had 2 children. The reason he had 2 children, even though he and his wife were capable of having more, was because he saw a famine coming. He realized that a famine was coming upon Egypt, and that he needed to have restraint in the near term in order to ensure that his children had a sustainable future. I think that we're in a similar time now, that we need to think about our consumption and our population today so that our children can inherit a livable and thriving planet. I'll end by saying that there was a recent study that showed that hundreds of millions of children in the world breathe toxic air every day. In my understanding, it's certainly not the vision of the Creator that we should be bringing children into this world that we're not able to support with a dignified lifestyle, with a sustainable lifestyle, with a healthy lifestyle. And therefore, it's our challenge today to ensure that our children can live in a planet that is healthy and thriving.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rabbi Nerel. That was a very beautiful a very eloquent statement. I do want to talk to you more about the translation of conquer, but we'll do that offline. Now, what I'd like to do right now is switch from a question to a very strong comment. And the keyword is commitment. And when I asked our panelists if there's anything they would like to bring up in this session, Archbishop Seraphim brought up the idea that industrialized nations must accept responsibility and do more to help nations adapt. And that do more is to help the poor. Again, it's the issue of sharing. There's a lot of talk going on, but a lot of the promises are so far empty promises. Now, I wanted to give the floor to Archbishop Seraphim to make his plea and demand.
When the whole population of the world were 2 billion, there were the 2 world wars. Today we're 7 billion, as you mentioned. So it's up to us how to realize that everything belongs to the Creator. We are responsible for sharing things. And unless we stop giving priority to some financial literacy, we don't have a future. We have to introduce now in the chapter of the human rights, the right to have a safe environment, the right to live in a healthy environment. And in order to have this safe environment, we cannot carry on 6 billion people to suffer and 1 billion people to have access to 80% of what there is in this planet. So the problem is a moral, the problem is a matter of justice, and we need strong legislation to protect people, to finish poverty. Secondly, human rights, to have democracy. And of course, the number 3, the climate change crisis. The first victims are the people who they cannot have proper houses, like in Philippines some years ago when we were in Warsaw.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And the victims are the children. We have to take action now, at least the children not to suffer because of our crimes.
Thank you. Thank you, Archbishop. Now, we will take questions offline afterwards. I want to give a special thanks to those organizations that helped me bring these shows together. The Abibiman Foundation from Ghana, the Tzu Chi Foundation, which is international in its activities but originated in Taiwan, and the International Society for Ecological Economics. Again, my name is Stuart Scott. I'm your host. Here's my email address if you'd like to be in touch, and we'll be doing many of these programs during the COP. So thank you all for coming. I'd also like to make a pitch for an action item. If you have a piece of paper to write it down, It's an action that anyone can take to help ensure a more sustainable future. NP4SD, Nobel Prize for Sustainable Development.org. Thank you very much.